My name is Lucy Pick, and I'm a historian of medieval Iberia, especially Christian, Muslim, Jewish relations and gender and power in the Middle Ages. And I'm also a writer of historical fiction. Anna and Alicia asked me if I would prepare a list of some of the historical fiction I like to read in English, so I've given them that. And they also asked me if I'd do a little short video talking about some of the books that I like. I think I've been reading historical fiction since I was a child. It's one of the ways that I became interested in the Middle Ages. It was one of the things that got me involved in it. And I think it's a great way to get people who don't know anything about the period to have a kind of a feel or a sense of that. I've used historical fiction in my teaching. And I think it works well, especially when you've got students who have just no clue about the kind of worlds that you'll be talking about. There are things you can do in fiction that we can't really do in our academic writing, so it's helpful to use. So I'm going to talk about some of the books that are on the list and maybe add a few that weren't, and I won't talk about everything. I'm going to concentrate on books that I actually own. So one of my favorite authors from early on was Cecilia Holland, and this is probably her best book, Cecilia Holland's Great Maria. It's about, sort of loosely about, the Normans in South Italy. So it's a period and a place that you don't get a lot of in fiction, and she's really great. She's written a number of books about the Middle Ages. I'd recommend all of them. This is one I have not yet read, but this is her book on Jerusalem. Her book Jerusalem, which is about the Crusades. So I'm looking forward to reading that too. Another favorite author is Margaret Elfinstone. She's written a lot of historical fiction, a lot of books about different periods, and a wonderful novel called He Brazil, which is about a kind of an imaginary island in the middle of the Atlantic. But a couple of books that I think are relevant to this, first of all, The Sea Road, which is about the exploration, the Norse exploration of Iceland and Greenland and then into Canada, told from the perspective of a woman. So it's an interesting perspective on that. And also her novel, The Islanders, which is about Fair Isle, north of Scotland. And it's about a 12th century Norse community, again told from the perspective of a woman. This is a place where Margaret Elfinstone lived, so she's got a kind of a personal attachment to the location, and I highly recommend that. Another favorite author is Dorothy Dunnett. She wrote a lot of different things. She wrote a lot of mysteries. She wrote a series about the 16th century, which was her first big historical fiction series. But the one that I'm going to mention now is her House of Niccolo series. The first book in that is Niccolo Rising. And I think that this series is really interesting because it's set in the 15th century. It's set all over, not just Europe, but the whole Mediterranean world and actually beyond, the northern world. And also my favorite volume in this series is this one, I think it's the fourth one, called The Scales of Gold, which is set in Africa. So it's a kind of a medieval globe before we were really talking about the medieval globe, and very influential on me and on my own interests. And because it's about trade, really, and so because it's about the perspective of traders and trade, it gives you a different picture of the Middle Ages than, the kind of the knights and ladies and swords and sorcerers kind of thing that you usually get. So I highly recommend Dorothy Dunnett. And then she had a one-off book that I also recommend, which I've used in teaching actually, which is, let me not cover up the title, King Hereafter, and it is about Macbeth. It's kind of a historical version of the Macbeth story. She was based in Scotland, so a lot of her fiction is kind of sort of Scotland is the center of it, which is also nice because Scotland isn't often treated as the center. Staying in the UK for a moment, this is a classic, Catherine, Anya Seton. I avoided reading this for a long time because I thought, oh my goodness, it must be so dated. I'm not going to enjoy it. Anyway, I really loved it. I just read it a couple of years ago, so that's a classic. And then a newer book is Nicola Griffith's Hild, which is about Hild of Whitby. This is the first volume in what's going to be a 2-volume series. And it's really wonderful. It's a really different picture of Hild of Whitby. And I think what's really nice about it is the way Griffith manages to show this blend of the Celtic, the Anglo-Saxon, and then the Latin, Roman, Christian civilizations, and how they are affecting each other, how they're changing each other. I think it's really wonderful for that, and I'm really looking forward to the second volume. A couple of books that weren't on my list, but I thought I should mention them because not all the Middle Ages is the European Middle Ages. These are books I read a long time ago by Eleanor Cooney and Daniel Altieri. They're about Tang Dynasty China, and very interesting look at a very different medieval world. Great big, thick 1970s style paperbacks. So I recommend those. When I was coming up with my list, I realized that a lot of what I read are in fact foreign foreign books published in English. Everybody knows, they're translated into English. Everybody knows Umberto Eco's Name of the Rose. It's always a good one. And I want to recommend Voroshkin's Larus, which is also very interesting on Russia and on Russian religion in particular. So I recommend that. And finally, just to conclude, I should show you my book, which is this one, Pilgrimage. It's about the Pilgrimage Road to Compostela in the 12th century. Anyway, thank you very much. Bye-bye.